Hey everyone, so nice to see you all joining me midweek sharing. And recently, Profound Name in some way has become more than anything else, especially when we have to do a lot of things online nowadays. I have to say, some people are very creative. The Profound Name speaks a lot about who they are. Just to name a few, just within our youth group, we have people like Gamers United, Flaming Red X, or Swanky Ash. Here's the thing. What if, because you are so creative, what if Jesus asked you to create a profile name for him? What would you come up with? Right? Think about that for a second. As a matter of fact, this actually happened. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus did ask his disciples, but not exactly come up with a profound name, but he did ask, who do you say I am? He said, who do you say I am? See, but the thing is, when I read that, I find the question rather odd or strange, because these are the disciples who had dropped everything to follow him. And in a way, you have to give them a lot of credit. And I think we can assume that they know Jesus somewhat. They actually have a pretty good idea who Jesus was. Otherwise, they wouldn't drop everything and follow him. But when you stop to consider how much the disciples had seen Jesus do, Jesus had performed miracles after miracles. He was healing the sick. He was feeding the 5,000s. He was feeding the 4,000 just with a small amount of food, walking on water, and the list goes on. And they would have seen all this, right? Could there really be any doubt about who Jesus is or who Jesus was? And yet Jesus still wanted to know. Jesus still asked them. And not to mention, there's the teaching, the parable after parable, illustration after illustration, sermon after sermon. They watched Jesus confront the Pharisees and the scribes, and they heard Jesus teaching about loving our enemies, about how to pray, about how to live. And the disciples enjoy such teaching, both among the large group of large amount of people, and also the intimacy of just the 12 of them. And they live together. They live with him. They learn from him. They learn from his word. They learn from his actions. And we should be beyond asking who Jesus is at this point. And yet Jesus still asked. Jesus still wanted to know. In Matthew 16, verse 13, it says this. He asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others says Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you, Jesus asked. Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. You see how Jesus didn't care about what other people say who he was. He only cares about who you say he is. Just as Jesus was asking his disciples back then, he's asking you today as well. Who do you say I am? Jesus said. In all honesty, I think how you answer this question is very important. It determines and affects your destiny. It has everything to do with your faith. So please take some time to think about this. Jesus said, who do you say I am? Love to hear from you. Leave your comments below. Hit subscribe or hit the bell for notification and updates. God bless you all. Have a great week. See you next time. Bye-bye.